Live with Sky News Chief Anchor Kieran Gilbert and Political Editor Andrew Clennell. This is Sunday Agenda.
Good morning. Welcome to the program after a week of emotionally charged impeachment hearings.
Donald Trump surrendered his role as Commander-in-Chief and became the Inciter-in-Chief.
President Trump left everyone in this Capitol for dead.
There you have it. Donald Trump has been acquitted by the Senate. 43 not guilty, 57 guilty. They needed to reach 67.
The US Senate votes to acquit Donald Trump of incitement of insurrection, and back home, as we'd like to, and we're doing very well as a nation, we simply can't seem to get away from the pandemic. The Prime Minister this week forced to downplay concerns the vaccine can't keep pace with new strains. That's as hotel quarantine fails again in Victoria, an outbreak there prompting another hard lockdown as farmers in Canberra and around the nation clashed with the Nationals over climate change. Rebel MPs threatening to cross the floor.
I'm committed to being against this.
But where that legislation is, you'll cross the floor.
And so, yeah, absolutely.
All this and more with my guests. I'll be joined this morning by the Shadow Treasurer, Jim Chalmers. I'll ask him what he'd be doing differently when it comes to the economic rebuild and Labor's plans on industrial relations. We'll go live to Washington, Annalise Nielsen, with that breaking news out of the US Senate. 57 senators voted out of the 100 to convict Donald Trump, but they didn't get the 2/3 required for that impeachment. So, Annalise, we'll chat to her and see what's next. Plus, we'll bring you Andrew Clennell's interview with outspoken New South Wales Police Chief Mick Fuller to tell us a bit about what to expect on the New South Wales response when it comes to COVID. First of all, let's bring in Andrew Clennell, our political editor, for some breaking news this morning. Andrew, amid the lockdown in Melbourne, it really puts a lot of heat in that debate about remote quarantining, and you've got some breaking news on that front this morning.
Yes, Sky News can reveal, Kieran, the federal government is in negotiations with the Northern Territorian government to almost triple the capacity of the Howard Springs facility in Darwin to take 2,000 overseas travellers per fortnight, up from 800. With Victorian Premier Dan Andrews flagging his desire to have less international travellers to Melbourne after the latest quarantine leak, and state premiers and the federal opposition piling the pressure on to have more regional quarantine, the Howard Springs deal shapes as a circuit breaker. When former top bureaucrat Jane Holton penned a report on quarantine for the federal government, she also suggested RAAF Learmonth near Exmouth in Western Australia as a potential surge or emergency site for quarantine. Given this is near airports, this could be another option for the federal government as it comes under pressure over the hotel's CBD quarantine regime. We are now looking at several months of short, sharp lockdowns, partly caused because in recent months, state governments started regularly testing hotel quarantine workers, meaning more positive cases are being registered. The lockdowns are set to continue despite hotel quarantine workers being vaccinated from late this month, because although the vaccination stops severe disease, officials believe the jury is still out on both Pfizer and AstraZeneca and whether they stop transmission. Have a look at the lockdowns we've had in the past 3 months. Adelaide, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne. 4 of these 5 lockdowns over 1 month. It seems Victorian contact tracing has failed in this latest instance, with many close contacts not contacted for 48 hours after cases were diagnosed. What really freaked the Victorians and others out about this outbreak is the fact a close contact who ended up with the virus worked a whole day at Melbourne Airport with the fear they might have potentially infected hundreds. There is also the case of the nebuliser being reportedly approved for use in quarantine spreading the virus. Despite all this, I'm told you'll not hear criticism from Scott Morrison or Josh Frydenberg this week about Victoria's approach, with the feds unhappy with the Victorian performance, but realising how much Australians want elimination and also burnt by previous forays against state premiers. Prime Minister Morrison looked to be caught up briefly in the Victorian restrictions following his trip to Victoria last week, after the initial advice out of New South Wales Health was if you'd been in Melbourne since January 29, you had to isolate. That was changed Friday night to isolation requirements only for people who arrived after midnight that night. At first, the New South Wales Chief Health Officer Kerry Chant and Health Minister Brad Hazzard went with the January 29 rule and then changed their minds after discussions with Premier Gladys Berejiklian and after, as a New South Wales health spokesman put it, a, quote, review of the decision, unquote, including on how many people had come from Melbourne and how easily they could be traced. That decision stopped the PM having to isolate.
Andrew, to some other news now, and we know that the government's majority is not a big one, so they're always looking at be able to pick up a seat or two at the next election. You got some news on one high-profile seat.
Yeah, Scott Morrison and his team always have an eye on who will be the best possible candidates to help them increase his slender majority at the next federal election. Certainly the case for the seat of Warringah, where the Liberals hope to defeat independent Zali Steggall. Recently, the PM invited former Premier Mike Baird and his family over to Kirribilli House, with several Liberals looking to urge Baird to run. Both Baird and the PM's office saying this is more a personal outing, though, with the PM keen to thank Baird's elderly parents for help they gave him and his wife when he entered the parliament and succeeded Bruce Baird and Cook. Baird, in an interview with me in January, ruled Warringah out this time round. People have spoken about you in federal politics, about taking on Zali Steggall in Warringah. Could that happen at the next election?
No. That's a pretty quick one.
No chance?
No chance.
Has Scott Morrison ever spoken to you about it?
No. No.
You're just not interested? Never ever?
No, well, of course I'm never going to say never, never, ever. I mean, look at Joe Biden. But I am not running.
Now, another name being spoken about in terms of Warringah is the New South Wales Environment Minister, Matt Kean. Apparently Kean, who like Steggall advocates for action on climate change, would be willing to go for the seat if Morrison prevailed on him and Baird did not wish to run. Several Liberals have urged Kean to run. Kean himself has been working on colleagues to attempt to lobby Baird into the race.
I mentioned earlier you've got an interview with Mick Fuller coming up. Always very interesting to chat to, isn't he?
Yes, and it's despite announcing a criminal investigation into the Ruby Princess saga earlier this year, the New South Wales Police Commissioner conceding in my interview with him that no charges may ever be laid in connection with the fatal voyage, saying one factor may be that any crime may have been committed in foreign waters. He does flag a potential coronial inquest, however.
I will say it has been a complex investigation, given the nature of the fact that, that this may have happened outside of, waters, Australian waters. So there are so many complications in the investigation, but I still believe, in terms of what my role is to honour to the people of New South Wales, that we do our best to get to the bottom of any criminal aspects. And if we don't, then we still have achieved enormous assistance to the Special Commission of Inquiry, and we will assist the coronial process in relation to that. So I don't see it as a wasted operation.
So you think there could be a coronial inquest? That's on the cards.
I think that's certainly possible. We have deaths as a result of the virus, and of course that is ultimately up to the coroner. But it's not exactly the type of matter, if the coroner makes a decision to have an inquest, that we can go back in time.
The full interview with Commissioner Fuller later in the program, where we discuss everything from the tragic case of the disappearance of North Coast boy William Tyrrell and hopes that crime can still be solved, the prospect of a second casino in Sydney, new trends in organised crime and the Commissioner's own future with a year left on his contract, Kieran.
Before I let you go, we'll chat to you later and also that interview, but the Crown saga continues.
The saga over Crown, whether it can make enough changes to win a casino licence for its hotel in Sydney after a damning report by Patricia Bergen was released this week. One big impediment remains. That is the resignation of Crown CEO Ken Barton, who is refusing to go, even after media speculation he would resign following criticism of him in the report. Other directors criticised. Michael Johnston and Andrew Demetrio have fallen on their swords. This is a test for the chair of Crown, former Liberal Minister Helen Coonan, who was praised in the report, Kieran.
Andrew, thanks. We'll talk to you a bit later. And as we mentioned, Victorians are waking up to day 2 of a 5-day snap lockdown as the government refuses to say what went wrong inside a quarantine hotel. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, reacted by piling the pressure on to have more regional quarantine. We just had that breaking news from Andrew that the federal government is in negotiations with the Northern Territory government to almost triple the capacity of the Howard Springs facility in Darwin to take 2,000 overseas travellers per fortnight, up from 800.